It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Lone Wolf Peira. Again. We've already talked about this character a few weeks ago when the rough draft of her kit was shown as well as her concept art, but now we have the official trailer with the finalized kit, so I want to talk about the animations, the voice acting for the character, and also my final thoughts on the character before her actual release, which should be tonight. You know, the day I'm recording this video, right? So I want to talk about all that. And at the end of the video, just to kind of highlight it, apparently maintenance, the schedule for maintenance has changed this week. I don't know if it actually will be different going forward, but we'll talk about that at the end. And also Tristan, as well as some other viewers, let me know about this potential Yufine skin drama. So I kind of just also want to tack that on to the end of the video in case you were unaware, kind of keep you in the loop. Anyways, without any further ado, let's take a look now at Lone Wolf Peira's Skill 3 animation.
You dare block my way? A bunch of Sunday drivers. With me backing you up, losing ain't an option. Can you keep up with me?
Alright, so art department, we always talk about it, carries this game. Gorgeous looking character, great looking character design. But man, do I think that not necessarily the execution, but the concept behind this skill 3 is not very good, right? So you think about like Abyssal Yufine, it's like, she clasps her head, she kind of freaks out. There's the berserk animation, she kind of like ricochets everywhere. It's very dynamic, very cool. We had Bystander Hua-Young recently, where she has the cool POV where she kind of like kicks you, ricochets off you, and as you're falling backwards, she comes and slams you down. You get that first-person view of watching her kind of come down and just like slam you through the pavement. It's so dynamic, it's so cool. This S3 animation is just like, here's some CGI generated gears and like a speedometer, or what's like supposed to be a speedometer, right? And then you get this like pose of her stretching and a boob bounce and a twirl. All right, like it's very boring when you think about it, right? Like, cause like this is gonna be the thing that you use the most on the character. This is gonna be the thing you see the most, and it's just like, oh yeah, look at how cool our character is just standing there with like a wrench. We could have done so many other like cool things, I think, with this S3. Like, I get that it's a buff skill, but it's just very boring, especially when you have a character with a design that's like, this out there, this loud, compared to some of the other characters in the game. So I just would have liked to have seen more with a good-looking character like this. So it doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for me. Anyways.
Can you keep up with me?
One thing that I've highlighted in streams and in previous videos here is, will Peira, the ML version of Peira, keep the same English VA? So as you can see, the English VA is Gini Tirado once again. This is the original VA for the English version of Peira. In case you're unfamiliar with her work, here are some of the characters that she has voiced in the past. Byleth from Fire Emblem, Vex from League of Legends, and if you've been following me from my Dragon Ball days, she is Miss Android 21, which is a character that's very near and dear to my heart, right? I was pretty synonymous with this character in the Dragon Ball Super card game days, right? Now, I guess known as Dragon Ball Super Masters. But yeah, so she is the voice of Android 21, and, is somebody that I've gotten to meet in person, and with the help of the community manager, Arusel, I was able to get her autograph on some Peira prints to be able to give away for charity as well as members of the community. So, very nice person, very, talented artist. And given the current landscape of the voiceover industry, the SAG-AFTRA strike, against certain companies for protections from artificial intelligence, you can see that effect being felt throughout a lot of the English voiceover industry. Certain Hoyo games, for example, Zenless Zone Zero, characters like Lycon simply just don't have voice acting. In the world of Epic 7, the voice actress for Flan was replaced due to this strike because an interim agreement could not be reached, right? And I've said this before in other videos, that the characters, their original voice, that's kind of who I associate the character with, right? Anna Graves, who's the voice of Luna, that's Luna in my mind. She made that character, right? If it's not Anna, then I don't want it, right? Same thing with Peira. You know, Genie is Peira. If it's not gonna be Genie, then it's like, all right, what are we actually doing here? Because if you can't work out an agreement, right, especially on an issue as sensitive as this, it's kind of like, what are we really doing here? Are you just like trying to cut costs and save money? Do you just not value the hard work and effort of the people that actually make the characters in your game so special? That's why it's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. But to see that it's Genie this morning, like I actually stayed up till when the trailer dropped just to see if it was her, because I've had people like Tristan tell me that they're pretty sure it's not her, and a number of you have come into my Discord or my streams and told me you don't think it's her. I've had so many people tell me they think it's Jeremy Lee, who is Surmia's VA, right? And it's just, it was this whole big hubbub, like, is it gonna be her? Is she gonna be the new Flan, where it's like the VA gets replaced? Thankfully, that is not the case. So I don't know what kind of deal was struck, right? Genie is a pretty decently sized name in this industry, so I don't think she would violate the strike line. So some kind of agreement was probably reached, maybe due to the backlash from Flan. Who knows? I don't really know. But again, it is very, very good to see her reprise this role. Also, I want to take a quick look over here.
Rumors are that
these facial expressions on this character are so clean. Everything about this character from an animation standpoint is so good except the skill 3 animation, right? So there's that. And then if we take a look actually here, we'll fast forward a little bit to the actual sprite work here. We'll lower the volume here. Look at this, man. Look at this. So she's got this pipe wrench. If you recall, originally Peira had this kind of like, she would have the feral stance with the claws that she would pull back. Having that be like the pipe wrench, which by the way, a pipe wrench, I'm pretty sure you don't use this to work on motorcycles like at all. I think that they just thought this would be a cool looking weapon, and it was a wrench, and they were just like, yeah, like we didn't do our homework. We just were like, you know what, this looks like a cool weapon. You know, you might use this if you're a mechanic. No, I don't think that's the case, but this is still really, really cool looking, right? That they replaced like her claws. Like, you know, as far as I know, the only other character that does this is Urban Shadow's Shu. Has completely different stance and mannerisms, like with the actual base sprite, right? Like normal Shu kind of holds like this with the staff. Like, sorry, I bumped the mic there, but yeah, she holds her staff like that, right? Whereas Urban Shadow's Shu holds it over the shoulder. Right, like these little mannerisms and differences give the characters a little bit more personality. It's kind of like they do a bit more with the sprite work, and I think that kind of deserves some attention to point out. And then also, this, I know this is her enhanced like S1, her soul burn, but like, man, this is so cool. Like they actually detailed the motorcycle for the character. They gave her a riding animation by hand, and then as you can see, she pops this like wheelie, right? And then goes in for like the slash, and I think that's like so cool, right? Right, it's a very anime thing to do, right? Is to have the actual motorcycle here. I kind of jump ahead there, but you can see, like even as far back as like the 80s with like Akira, you would have these like, you know, this feels very Akira. Like the opening sequence has the, you know, one of the clowns kind of pop the wheelie and go for like the side swipe with the pipe. That feels very reminiscent of this, and so that's like a really cool thing to see. Like I really like what they did with this animation. The sprite work on this character is incredible. Like I think it might be the best in the game, or very close to the best in the game. So I'm very happy with how everything turned out visually with this character, except for, like I said, the skill 3 animation. Anyways, to kind of recap, for those of you guys who didn't see last week, let's just go over the stats again, the kit, and I'll talk about, is it worth it to pull, how I build the character. So she is a Dark Warrior of the Aquarius Zodiac symbol. That's the same as Conqueror Lilius. So most builds that you can build on Conqueror Lilius, they're probably going to work on her. If you pull this character for whatever reason, you could basically just take all of your Sea Lilius gear and just port it right over to Lone Wolf Peira. It will probably work, right? It almost assuredly works. Same thing with Artifact. Most artifacts, I feel like, that you played on Sea Lilius will work on this character, some to varying different degrees. Sweet Miracle is probably going to be the best overall option for the character. Right? I would go speed set with Sweet Miracle. I think that's probably the best way to build the character. And it's funny that we can kind of like jump ahead here slightly here. As you can see, it might be, no, it's not here in the video, but this character runs almost the entire duration of February, which is when Laia should be due for a rerun, and her artifact is the limited one, Sweet Miracle, that I'm recommending. So I don't really think it's a coincidence that we made a character that's very good with an artifact that's about to most likely get a rerun, that you're going to want to pull a lot of copies for, invest a lot of your resources, right? So that, again, feels like that's kind of by design that we're doing it that way. So that's kind of, again, how I'd build her and what I'd have her actually on. Let's kind of review the kit in case you guys don't know what she does. Skill 3 is Hound of the Indolent, 3 souls upon use, 5 to 8 turn cooldown depending on Malagora. 5 turns seems like a lot, but when we talk about this here, you'll see it has an extra turn, which is more in line with the 4 turns that you would get on a standard S3. Dispels 2 debuffs from all allies before granting Rampage to Dark Elemental allies for 3 turns. Grants Swift Attack to all allies except for the caster, grants an extra turn. In case you don't know, Rampage is this new undispellable buff that increases the speed and evasion of these dark units by 20%. That includes Peira, right? Also grants Swift Attack to all allies except for the caster. Swift Attack, if you recall, is a buff that was on Ahmed from the past, right? It would give one person essentially this Swift Attack, which is a dispellable buff that says whenever you take your turn, you get 50% combat radius. Famously paired with characters like Blue Kisei in order to basically get a 1-2 punch. Allow you to kind of go S3 on Nocturne immediately into Dark Scar for like a big team wipe, right? This gives that to everybody. The fact that you get the speed buff, the evasion buff, and the Swift Attack buff means that she's probably very strong with characters like Bloodblade Corinne, because Bloodblade Corinne usually doesn't want to skill 3 for the big like team wipe extra turn reset until she softens somebody up, but her skill 1 gives combat readiness. The fact that you get that Swift Attack and Rampage means it's very likely now that BBK aggressive players or cleavers can just kind of skill 1 after you use Hound of the Indolent, soften somebody up, and then almost immediately take another turn right after, go for Blade Dragon, get a kill, get the reset, extra turn, and kind of clean up from there. So it's a very, very powerful skill, right? It's a very, very strong opening skill. And again, it gives that extra turn. Now, if we move on to the skill 2 passive, this is where things kind of get a little bit crazy, right? So this character increases her evasion by 35 to 50% based on Malagoras. At the start of the turn, increases the attack by 20%, can stack up to 5 times. At the end of the turn, increases the combat radius of all allies by 10%. So, essentially, this character has 50% evasion. That's not something we haven't seen before, right? There are a ton of characters with evasion in the game. But, if we go back to the actual stats page here on Peira, right? She has 613 defense and 6,149 health. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the tankiest character that we have ever gotten with evasion. Most evasion characters never break 500 defense. There are, I think, characters that might have slightly more HP. For example, Green Violet, I believe, is a character that has more HP than Peira, but not by a huge magnitude. This is easily, I think, the tankiest evasive character that we've ever gotten. And because she has 50% evasion off rip, that means that certain characters like Zio that you would usually use to stop fast openers that are not rangers are inconsistent. So yes, there are characters faster than Peira, right? But aside from like Sea Phantom Politis, they are inconsistent, right? Even if Numa and Luna goes first, if Peira has turn 2, she just uses Hound of the Indolent and therefore dispels all of the debuffs off of your team. No harm, no foul. On top of that, remember, Hound of the Indolent gives an extra turn. At the end of each of her turns, she gives combat readiness to all allies by 10%. So you get a 20% CR push just for this character taking their very first turn, assuming you use the skill 3. And I've heard people say that is not a big enough combat readiness boost. I've heard people say that other bridges or openers give like 30% or more, and that's what you really need to make the character good. I kind of disagree. 10% CR push at the end of, on your whole team, by the way, at the end of each of your turns on a character that fast provides unparalleled tempo, I think, in the current state of the game. I feel like some people are saying, I've heard from like many people that Light says that they don't think that Peira's broken, and maybe she's not, but I think this character is going to be incredibly strong. Potentially game warping. I'm not willing to commit to that statement just yet. Again, I always want to test the characters myself, play with and against them to kind of formulate my own opinions. But I just don't see how a character that can move at 300 speed, that gives a CR push to your whole team, even a small one, every single turn is unreal. We've seen characters like Mediator, Kowaric through the years only give 15% CR push to 2 characters on your team every single turn, and that was enough for him to just be a tempo machine and just, completely dominate entire formats. Yes, power creep has gotten way out of control, and he's just like on the lower end of playable now, but this character, considering she's so fast, so tanky, very difficult to interact with due to the dodge, and creates that much tempo, along with being a dispeller that gives a speed buff, and the swift action to your team, is very, very strong. And then, of course, just for the sake of it, she has an attack buff that increases up to 5 times over the course of the game, because, of course, your opener needs inevitability. So when we go to the S1 Bash here, it's a defense break, right? And a successful attack inflicts additional damage proportional to the caster's attack. So she has the Requiem Rwana skill 1. And considering she has the stacking passive, if you get a defense break on characters, you can absolutely just kill them with Peira. So the character is a cleanser, an opener, a tempo machine, a setup character, and then also can be a carry in the hyper late game, assuming that you're not up against, like crazy damage, right? You can actually get there with this character. And then the Soul Burn is the AoE attack. That's the motorcycle ride that we talked about. That is an AoE defense break with some extra splash damage, right? Proportional to her attack. So all that is going to be on one character. And I have to say, I just think the character is very, very strong, right? The character does a lot of things very, very well. And I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with a good friend of mine, Drac, about the moment that power creep kind of occurred in Epic 7, at least as far as cleave, and that was with Ran, right? Because previously, before Ran, right, you needed to take a dispel, right, a way to get rid of the buffs, and then also a defense break, right? With Ran, you get a strip and a defense break, so you need less things. You need to draft less things, right? You don't need to draft multiple instances of damage when you can just take one Ludwig and just stack a bunch of kind of mages, utility mages with book, right? We have decreased the amount of things that you need to draft. So what happens with a character like Peira, right? And why it's indicative of power creep is, it is, like I said, a character that is a tempo machine, an opener, a cleanser, and also, the tankiest evasion unit ever. But it's also, I believe, the only AoE defense break that bridges, as far as I'm aware. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section below. But previously, you would need Ran to strip and break, and then you would need a different, like a bridge on top of that, right? So this character can just be the defense break and the bridge. It's just another, combination, like another version of Ran, where we've just simplified it by adding 2 things that you normally would need into one unit. Right? That is very, very strong. So even if the character is not going to be game warping, right? I don't see how the character becomes bad. I think Peira, at worst, Peira becomes this character that you see every couple of games. But at best, the character is literally like a new Moon Luna or an Empyrean Illinav, where you just slam it every single game. So yes, I do recommend that you pull for Peira. And again, as for how to build her, Sweet Miracle is the artifact, and pretty much as fast as you can get it, or some combination of speed and bulk. I'll probably play her if I pull her at 290 speed with 1400 defense or 20 or 21k HP. That'll just be so difficult for my opponents to kill, especially considering she is a dodge unit, right? And then obviously you want some effectiveness for the defense break, probably about 100 or so. Anyways, now that we've talked about my thoughts overall on Lone Wolf Peira, let's talk about some of the other happenings that are here in the community, other news events, in case you guys missed it. So apparently, maintenance has been moved to quote-unquote Friday. Normally it's Thursday, which for those of us here in the United States, that usually means Wednesday night. Now it is Friday, So that means, I believe, tomorrow, if you're watching this as it airs, Thursday is maintenance. I don't actually know if this is how it's going to be going forward all the time. Currently, it is only announced for tomorrow, but it started to get me to think, right? In March, we have the change coming to Guild Wars, right? And all servers are going to be linked for those fights. Now, if I am on a global server guild that is primarily stationed in North America and I'm against an Asia server guild, those two servers have different server reset times. Which server reset time are we using for Guild War? How do you determine the end of the Guild War? And I'm worried because I talked about this with Pootie Tang, who's a member of my Discord. We are based in the eastern part of the US, and that is usually the time zone that gets the shaft when it comes to these things. Usually, the ending time is usually in the middle of the night EST, like midnight PST, early morning Europe, and then like, you know, midday for the rest of the world. So I'm sitting here going, is this kind of the calm before the storm of, hey, are we just gonna have different maintenance times, and it's in preparation for this potential Guild War problem that I'm theorizing, or I'm thinking about down the line. Anyways, just want you to know, maintenance, not tonight, it's tomorrow. That means that if you're watching this video as it airs, I'll be streaming later, trying to pull a Lone Wolf Peira. Hopefully we can build her, kind of figure out what makes her actually tick. The last thing I want to talk about is, this was brought to my attention by a couple of users on Discord, as well as Tristan himself. Apparently, the CN server is getting a check-in event that comes with a bunch of 88 gear that you can see here on the right side above my head, right? This is not new. We have seen this before, right? I've talked about this. The publisher for the game for the rest of the world versus the CN is different. They are different companies, right? It is simply Super Creative makes the assets for the game, gives them to their respective companies, and it is up to the respective companies, either Smilegate or the person that runs it in CN, to decide what to do with those assets, right? Now, that said, if one server is celebrating Lunar New Year and getting a bunch of stuff, you know, and you have the same assets, maybe you would be inclined to do the same. Especially when apparently one of those assets is a brand new skin for a very popular character, which is Yufine, right? So this is apparently on your screen a skin for Yufine, and apparently it is essentially an epic pass that CM will be getting. Currently, we are in the midst of a pass on global, right? Asia, Europe, right? Korean servers. We are all in the middle of an epic pass. Usually when that pass goes away, if there is a skin in waiting, then they kind of produce it. So that's not to say that it's not coming, right? CN may have gotten it first, and we're just going to see it like a week and a half later because of how they have scheduled the Epic Pass, which is normally the skin distribution system for us here on global, Europe, Asia, Korea, Japan servers, right? But yeah, it does exist, by the way. I should point this out. Like, it is definitely in our game data. As you can see, the link here is from E7 Vault. This is essentially a website that data mines, you know, kind of resources from the game. So if they were able to pull this, it means it exists in the files of the current client that we're on, further leading credence to the fact that maybe it is coming in the very next Epic Pass. I was able to dig up this animation here. This was kind of like a data mined, I guess, you know, S3 animation for the character, so you can see what it looks like. She also has unique lobby animations with this, the lion here, right? Very, very cool looking, very festive. And then also, apparently, this was sent to me as well. Here is a, I believe this is a friendship artifact, which is very, very important, right? I don't believe we got one of these for the Dash Pass event for new players. So if you're somebody who joined for the Dash Pass event, hopefully they give this to us in the coming weeks with Lunar New Year coming, right? Because friendship farming artifacts are very good. Obviously, if you don't know, right, getting a character to friendship 10 gives you free resources like Malagoras, for example, which is super, super helpful. Also, it is the backbone of being able to farm a lot of stigma and gold for things like Eulogy for a Saint or Unrecorded History, right? If you farm those things regularly in order to get Catalyst, Stigma, things like that in order to sell penguins for gold. This thing is a godsend because it basically increases your gold generation rate for those game modes, right? So this is a very big deal. If you are newer and you don't have this, I would like to see this be added or given out to other people. Again, super creative. Their artist drew this picture, right? This is probably already in the game files. It is up to Smilegate to deliver it to the players, right? And like I said, we're still in January, the tail end of January. As I'm recording this, there's a very, very high chance, in my opinion, that this will come in the coming weeks, especially if community sentiment is very loud about it. So I've seen people already in YouTube comments on videos going, where's the skin? Da, 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 you know, why are we not getting this stuff? Chill. There's probably a pretty good chance it's coming at whatever the tail end of this epic pass is that we have. I don't know how many more days we have it for. I'm not in game. But again, to me, it just seems like the logical thing that they drop over the next couple things. Again, skin's already done, right? It's already an asset that's made. Why would you not charge the Skystones to players to get it, right? It's free money. So yeah, in case you weren't aware, that's the skin situation and everything that was kind of sent to me by a number of people this morning. Just want to keep you in the loop. And, you know, as always, let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about today down in the comment section below. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll see you all hopefully later tonight during the Lone Wolf Peira stream. Anyways, have a good one now. Peace.